everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm here with another review for Married at First Sight, season 19 on Peacock now, not Lifetime, but episodes 3 and 4. We are still on the wedding, so we're about to get into it. We ain't gonna take too much time. I won't be before you long, but we're gonna get into these episodes and talk about these new couples. So the episode opens up with the AARP Love with Pat and Rhonda. They seem to be giggly and giddy and having a good time. We then see Derek and Meagan, and we find out that Derek had a nightmare and does from time to time have night terrors. And he tells us his dad had them. So that's different. You know, I wouldn't want that life, night terrors. Sometimes we have bad dreams, but to have night terrors, I don't want that. But he has night terrors. J&J, meaning Jalen and Josh, you know, they like each other. They're kissing. They didn't have any sex. You know, they like to ask that. No sex. But it's her mother's wedding day. So they just got married the day prior, and now they're going to her mom's wedding. So now he's going to his new mother-in-law's wedding and is going to pick up a new stepdad. It's crazy, right? We have the first in Married at Sight history of mother and daughter getting married. So very cool. There they talk about Josh wanting a post-nup because he has a successful business, and this is at the advice of his business partner, who also made his wife get a post-nup. That's, you know, okay. But, you know, I guess it's more to protect their assets, which I ain't mad at it because this is a stranger. Protect yourself. We saw that once before with Stasha. Can't remember her husband's name. She wanted a post-nup. So, yeah, you're marrying a stranger. So, no problem with it. But I wrote, how does that work? Because your business partner telling you what to do. But I guess I answered my own question. Get the post-nup. And she seems to be fine with it. She gets it. You know, I think that's a great way to start off. And then you guys can adjust those things if should you make it and should you be in the marriage for some years and, you know, maybe have kids together, then you guys can adjust your post-nup. So whatever. So we officially meet Belinda as a bride, which is Jalen's mother. She is 47 years old. So she's not exactly old, you know. I'm about to be 43, so she is 4 years older than me, a freshman to senior high school away. So, hey, you know, she has a grown daughter. She had her child really young, and now, you know, her children, I should say, pretty young, and, you know, the marriage didn't work, and now, you know, she's getting married at first sight. So this is her second marriage and wants to have fun, and she looked absolutely beautiful in her dress. I like it. She's a little thick, so we, again, normal looking people, just regular everyday people on this show, which I do appreciate as opposed to the other dating shows that are on TV. And we got the Insta influencers, the Botox baddies, betties. They really ain't that bad, child. But just regular everyday folks looking for love. So I'm feeling that. Then we meet her spouse-to-be, Chad, who is 54 years old. And this is going to be his fourth marriage. Wow. His fourth marriage. This is where the drama could ensue. Because he done threw 3 of them ladies out on the street. Or they threw him away, one way or the other. 3 marriages. You are the male Erica Kane. Elizabeth Taylor. Okay. I mean, he gives, you know, stubborn. He gives a tough exterior. He's a business person. He has a real estate, you know, company. I think he does either commercial or maybe some residential. So he's business minded and can come off gruff and rough. Even though that's how he is in business, that might carry over to the house, but we'll see. And Belinda seems so light and fun and bubbly and just, you know, I don't want to say naive in a way, but she seems like somebody who just wants to be light, you know, keep things light and fun and not be super duper. Like, it's like an opposite thing. That's how I can best describe it. But down to the wedding, they say their vows. They seem to like each other. Again, Belinda looks beautiful. She says her vows. Chad says his vows, and he's memorized his vows, which I loved. Okay, so good start, Chad. Somewhere in their package for Chad, it's advised to be strong with him. So I guess the family members or somebody said that to her. You're advised to be strong with him. And I wrote in my notes, what does that mean? To me, at first glance, early in my notes, he looks like he's stubborn. He gives that tough exterior, that, white businessman vibe, And Jalen and her mom, Belinda, who is our now bride that we're talking about, they are Hispanic. I can't remember if it was Mexico or what have you, but just want to put that out there, right? Not that it has anything to do with anything, but they're beautiful people. So for Chad and Belinda, we're back at their room. They did have the reception. But in the room, they seem to like each other and they relax a bit. It's the typical help me out of my dress and all that kind of, thing with that. And, Jalen, she's recounting her mom's wedding and how, they're connecting together as a family with Josh and revealing, hey, to Chad that this is my daughter and she's also married at first sight. So not only do I have a new son-in-law, you do too. And, now they're a family of 4 on this show. And that is going to be another aspect, that, is going to come out on the show. Also, Jalen then also admits they had sex. Now, I said no sex at the first, but somewhere in the line, they did admit that they did it. They did it, okay? Oh, it probably was the next day. Whew. This show is moving so quick. We're not used to this pace at Married at First Sight, okay? I'm not used to the pace. This is moving a lot faster than we're used to. But throughout this episode, or in this episode, the couples talk about what they're going to bring for their honeymoon, that type of banter. I'm going to bring this. I don't know what to bring. I brought cold stuff. I brought warm stuff. But we find out they're going to Panama. That's such a welcome thing because they usually go to Mexico. So Panama, pretty cool. It's a good time. On the way to the honeymoon, Chad got a new ring for Belinda and she got him a ring too. So she got a little diamond and I thought that was pretty nice. They upgraded their rings immediately. I thought that was really nice. I mean, he got the money to do it, seemed like it. And she got him an upgraded ring too. Then the brides and the grooms meet. So they're as a group because, they're going to be leaning on each other, throughout this process. So they all meet each other and see who's who in the process. But then we find out they did meet after all at the bachelorette party, but it doesn't look like the bachelorette parties that we're used to on the Lifetime versions. Again, it looked a bit dry and a bit cheap. I feel like Peacock put no budget into this show, but yet it was, I wonder what the deal was with the switching of the networks anyway. Why? We never found out why Married at First Sight went to Peacock and now there's no budget. Like Lifetime was doing the thing, the after party, all of that, right? We'll see. The jury's still out on Peacock. Okay, the jury is still out. So on the way to the honeymoon, to the plane, to the airport, to the traveling of it all, the AARP couple, Pat and Rhonda, quirky 1 and 2, they challenge and text all of the couples to do the Mile High challenge and how to get that done because Pat's friend sent him a video about how to have sex in an airplane. So that was the challenge. Okay, different reactions for the different couples. So when they get down to Panama, of course, they're excited. They're at their hotel. They're checking out the room. We see Jayla, Josh, Belinda, and Chad. They're all getting together because they're actually a family, mother and daughter married at first sight. So they're a family and they're like first family trip. I'm like, okay, y'all, this is weird, but I'm gonna watch. Um, then we get down to Will and Brittany as they're on the honeymoon, and there's a little bit of awkward energy going on because down to the honeymoon of it all, they have sex. They got so hot and heavy that they say we shouldn't have done that because they did not use any protection. So things got awkward real fast and regrets came really fast. And I guess Will says, okay, well, let's not do this again. And Brittany's like, oh, you have regrets? And she starts to feel some type of way about it. She starts to feel insecure in the relationship because now that they've crossed that boundary of being stranger spouses that are, got hot and heavy because they are attracted to each other. They are married. Why not? And got so much into it. They were a little bit irresponsible because you still don't know them and had unprotected sex. Okay. And then the weird vibes, the regret vibes, and Brittany then has triggers of rejection. And that is how episode 3 ends. Episode 4, Josh and Jalen. They have this conversation in their hotel room. Who's the faves? Who's the strongest couple? They like to throw these things in, whether it's Derek and Meagan, Pat and Rhonda, her mom, Belinda, and Chad, Will and Brittany. They think they're number one. But they think that Will and Brittany have no physical chemistry. That's what I wrote down. Well, they do. You just don't know the half of it. So I have to say that the hotel in Panama looks cheap. Like they got the lowest budget 2-star resort hotel in Panama. Y'all couldn't even get them to sandals. Like there was no sandals in the budget. This is the worst looking honeymoon I've ever seen. It is given first season back, when Married at First Sight started, and they didn't have a budget. But the show does have a following. So I don't think that translated well in the Peacock. It just looks cheap. It looks cheap. But anyway, with Jalen and Josh, he's like, excited, like, okay, wife, one of the things I want to do with you is go to the Burning Man. And I'm like, Burning Man? I guess she looked it up and she's like, it's not for her. It's in the middle of the desert. There's, you're camping out there. It's hot. And she's not an outdoor kind of girl. She's an indoor girly girl, which I can relate. Listen, that would be me. I'm not going down to the desert. I'm not going to rough it at all. My sister went on a trip somewhere in another country, and where they have for the toilet, it's a hole in the floor and you have to squat. And I was like, I really want to go visit. I think she was in Kenya. She was like, Angela, but this is the toilet situation, and I know you ain't trying to do it. And when she explained what it is, and I saw a picture on Google, I was like, you absolutely right. It ain't my thing. I don't like bugs. If I see a fly in my house, I'm freaking out. Like, I don't like that. Keep me inside. Keep me comfortable. No, I ain't roughing it. I agree with Jalen, but she's trying to be optimistic, not poo-poo on his parade. So good for her on that. Meagan and Derek, sharing. We find out sharing is a struggle for Meagan. She likes to shop. She likes to spend lots of money. She looked like it, She's a workaholic. She's successful in her business. So, I get it. And realizing she's married and, is a lot for her. Her mom was worried about that. And, that probably has some influence, and MAFS wasn't what she saw for her daughter. So, she's being reserved. She's pulled back, and she wants to keep it light for her honeymoon, which I can understand. At the same time, you want to get to know each other, but there's a balance with that. You got to share. You don't have to talk about deep and heavy stuff, but you got to share a little bit, right? You got to share a little bit, Meg. But, I can respect keeping it light for the honeymoon, but that, also it's a time to get to know each other. right? You can keep the conversation light, but have conversation, okay? Rhonda and Pat, from that Pat likes space movies, and he liked to talk a lot. He is a chatterbox. Rhonda seemed bored with all his talking because they show these montage him talking. Cut. He's still talking. Cut. She looking like this. So he got a lot to say and just keeps talking, just diarrhea of the mouth. He talks more about himself rather than ask her questions about her, right? He's telling everything about himself, but he's not asking anything. So I'm going to kick back over to Will and Brittany. They're still having this awkward, conversation that seems forced because of this pullback, because of what happened in their intimate, discovery with not using the proper precautions. So it's like they're forcibly having conversation. I guess she's wearing orange. Oh, it's not quite orange, it's coral. Upset because, now her new husband seems distant about it, with her after the, debacle that they're having so early on. I think they complicated it with the sex, which is a possibility. They're married, so it's hard to read what should be right, but maybe they should have had that talk within themselves. I'm not sure if the experts talked to them about, wedding night expectations, because they did in their interviews with the experts talk about sex. I didn't see that so much with the other couples, or that I can remember, because it's been a few days since I watched these shows. It's been busy, child. But did y'all talk about that? Did y'all talk about taking precautions? Have, an expectation of, I'm not going to have, sexual relations with my stranger spouse for a couple weeks, or maybe not until we say yes on decision day, right? We can get close, but no cigar. How are you going to work that out, right? While trying to lead into an actual real marriage, let alone the timeline for the show. Okay. But however, with Brittany, she may be too much in her head at the same time. She's an overthinker. That's one of the things, she's an overthinker. She's almost trying to be, low-key a perfectionist, while he's just very intellectual, and it's probably going to be facts and figures over feelings. And so he can pull back because these are the facts. He could, be like a light switch off and on. So too early to tell, but this whole debacle is so early on, day 2 or 3 of their marriage, changing the trajectory of that excitement that they had with one another when they first saw each other at the altar. However, with Will, I'm not 1,000% on him yet. And also I notice, and I think that he's really aware of the camera. So he's really calculated, and I don't mean that in a bad way, about what he's saying to her and how he's acting. Because even the way his eyes are shifting around the room, he's aware that there are 50-11 cameras there. Back over to Pat and Rhonda. Pat, I think he's trying too hard to be cool because of the energy that Rhonda gives, but Rhonda's quirkiness is true to who she is. Pat has no questions for Rhonda. Like, he hasn't asked her any questions, and she voices that. She calls him out on that and makes him aware that you talk a lot about yourself, but you're not asking me anything about myself. Lets him know that he has no awareness. And a lot of men don't, child. A lot of men don't be having no self-awareness. And he's old too. No shade, but shade nonetheless. And then he comes with these excuses of why he's not doing X, Y, and Z to kind of even facilitate getting to know her. And then she calls him out again. Rhonda calls out his defensiveness. Good for her. Good for her. However, I don't think she should need to teach him how to, but, at the same time, there are strangers, but, she's teaching him, it's a yes, no thing. Like, you should tell somebody how they should treat you. So, this is how I need to be treated. This is how you should treat me, so that they don't go stabbing around the dark. But it's a toss up. It's a toss up for me. And I like how she helps him to redirect when he comes off the beaten path. So maybe that'll give us some insight into later on, maybe, really what was the deal with that 30 years and all of a sudden, you break up with your wife. Over to Meagan and Derek. So far, meh. I still give them the meh, grade. She says she's overbearing and she's in control in her work. Now, your work life and your relationship life are two different things. So we're going to have to see how that pans out. She claims to, want a soft life in other areas. But, we'll see. She claims to want that soft life. We'll see how, who she really is. I'm really, not feeling her. She comes off really, really dry. Sis is dry. She gives me that princess spirit, that princess spirit, that, expects the world but doesn't have to do anything for it. Mixed with boss. So we'll see. He seems to be easier going. And he also feels that she's not one to reciprocate. And so far, I don't really feel that she's giving anything and she doesn't have a lot of substance. Over to Jalen and Josh again. Josh gets her a diamond ring to put on top of her band, which I thought that was so nice. And he gave her a nice little piece of ring too. I said, okay, Josh, I ain't mad. Gave her a nice little piece of ring. We ain't mad about it. Okay. Love that for you. They do this while they go to the rainforest and she's not an outdoorsy girl. She's coming in with her cute little outfit and heels. And I thought that was kind of weird, but they drive up the mountain and they go to this lookout and that's where he gives her the ring. And she's like, yeah, I know I got heels on and stuff, but maybe that's showing him that she's not that type of girl. I don't know. Or this is what she brought. So, but again, this is the getting to know you stage and they really seem to like each other. Maybe they are setting this couple up to be the golden couple based on this edit so far. So the boys and girls, they meet up and Jalen gets to show off her ring. How nice. Chad got, of course, Chad got Belinda a new ring too. So, both parties are showing off their rings and they upgrade their rings on like day 2 or 3 of marriage. Because dumb Married at First Sight Peacock they cut the budget from Lifetime. They gave him some cheap rings. Like, what is that? Was that like, how you go to the store and you buy a key ring? That's what those rings look like. The little rings that you put around your keys. The thinnest of thin bands. I mean, what is going on with the budget? They talk about the L word and all the ladies confess to sex. The boys talk about that too, of course, because that's what the producers are prompting them to do. Awkward banter. And the girls, they're talking about these communication issues, right? Rhonda and, how her communication issues with Pat and how he doesn't reciprocate the energy. And then, of course, Meagan is claiming, I just want to keep it light. Your communication issues, you're not communicating on the other side of it. Right? And because, Pat, on the guy side of the communication issues, part of the conversation, he tells, the guys that, Rhonda pointed out, I don't really give her or make space for her. I don't really make space to ask questions about her. I have to get better with that. And she told me, and I kind of regrouped myself, and now I'm aware of it. And Derek is having a similar issue with Meagan. So, because he's an older guy, I'm assuming he's like, you know what? This is my elder. And if it worked for him and it could work for me. So then Derek and Meagan, they go on a paddleboard date, which looks really, really fun. And, on that date, he brings up, that he's like, if I address it, make her aware, maybe we can kind of turn things around. And so Derek does tell Meagan that she doesn't ask questions about him. She comes off defensive, in an effort to keep things light. That's what she says. But in my notes, I write, she's concerning. Derek, for her to get so upset about something, and as you guys are starting off a relationship and getting to know each other, can keep it light, but you can still ask him questions. And she is flustered. Princess, pretty princess, ambitious, pretty princess is flustered. She says she feels ambushed. And I'm like, girl, what? Derek, problems, red flag. And she just doesn't, and it's going to be a problem because she doesn't take feedback well. That's going to be a problem. All right. And I wrote in my notes, even though I said it off the top of my head, princess spirit. And she's upset, and it's not even that deep. And that is the end of episode 4. Well, thank you so much for sticking around for episodes 3 to 4, Married at First Sight. Thanks for supporting the channel. So make sure that you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Grow with me as I am figuring out my YouTube journey as I'm figuring out my YouTube journey as a reviewer. So you guys are coming at the bottom level, base floor, bottom of the internet, but we're gonna go all the way to the top. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Until the next video, peace.